This is Randy Sullivan, the host of Bourbon Real Talk. I grew up in a small town and went to a small church where everyone looked and thought like me. Over the years, I've gotten to know and love people from all different walks of life. This has made my world bigger and richer. The secret ingredient in forming those relationships was getting to know people's real stories. That helped me to identify with them, have compassion on them, and eventually develop a real connection with them. We live in a disconnected world today, and I want to do everything in my power to build connections between individuals who may not have attempted friendship otherwise. I've observed this happening in the bourbon community on its own because whiskey naturally brings people together. Bourbon Real Talk hopes to combine the world's new passion for bourbon into an opportunity to bring people together. We will share some whiskey knowledge, some good drams, and some real talk. So sit back, pour a drink, and open your hearts and minds. You might just find yourself feeling more connected to the people in the world around you, all fueled by bourbon. Hey there, Bourbon Real Talk family. We have a very special guest with us here today. You probably already know and love him. We are here today with Rodney Smith in the house. Yeah. So, Rodney has a very interesting backstory that I think is probably going to shock most of the listening audience. And we've got some really good whiskey that we're going to try today as well.
Yeah.
Really good whiskey. Broke out the good stuff from my boy because I know this is one of his favorites. And I don't know if you still have some of this stuff left. So what we're going to be trying today is a 2017 Thomas Handy rye from the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. Didn't you have a 17 at one point?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and I think you brought it over here and we tasted it side by side against my 15, right?
That is correct.
And I do believe that I preferred the 17.
That is also correct.
But I have had several people argue with me that I must have been wrong because they say that the 15 is better. But for me and my taste buds, I prefer the 17. So we have the honor of actually opening this one up today because it was not opened. So before we started recording, I got the little foil started without my bourbon knife because it's downstairs.
Randy, that is tradition.
Yeah, I know.
That is tradition.
I know, but I don't normally wear the bourbon pour knife when I got my my shorts on. I don't know. It feels weird to have a knife on my. I don't even wear a belt when I got shorts on, so it feels weird to have a knife. So let's see if it makes the noise for the people.
If you want, I can do you the honors and hold your glass while you uncomfortably.
Yep, right. Here we go.
Ooh.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Oh.
All right. I'm gonna pour this bad boy up. That's probably a fair amount. I'll get you poured up as well.
And they do know these are Someone Say whiskey glasses, right?
If they didn't, they know now. I don't know if they can
now.
They can see that level of detail. Looks like the camera's having a hard time figuring out what to focus on. But yes, these are official Someone Say whiskey glasses in the house.
Probably didn't see anything.
Probably not. But we're doing the best we can. We got HD camera people. All right. So let's smell this bad boy up. So one of the things that I find interesting is that when I'm smelling rye, quite often I get a lot of a dill component, but I don't get as much of that in on Thomas Handy. I get more like clove, nutmeg, baking spices, things like that. What are you getting?
Man, this one is actually kind of different than the 17 I had. I'm actually smelling like some cinnamon.
Yeah, definitely some cinnamon on this bad boy. But it also just got cracked, so it might change a little bit with a little bit of oxygen. But yeah,
even like a fresh bouquet of roses.
There's definitely some floral components in this bad boy for sure. See what it tastes like.
Oh, that tastes like heaven.
Yeah. That is a big, bold flavor, people. And
It
it's
is.
delicious.
It is.
I've always said Thomas Handy's probably my number 3 whiskey.
Really?
Yeah, probably my number 3. I'd probably go George C. Stagg,
Of course.
William LaRue Weller,
Okay.
Thomas Handy, and then probably Parker Heritage 11 year.
Whew, that is good.
Yeah.
That one is really good.
Somewhere in there. I don't know. I have screwed up in a blind before, though, and gotten the order out of whack. But that happens from time to time because taste buds are taste buds. So what are you going to do? Rodney, you all probably know him from whiskey clubs. He's very active, founder of Someone Say Whiskey. And if you've ever hung out with him, he's like cool, level-headed, all of that stuff. But Rodney has a dark past. And I know that because we're close friends. So I'm gonna tell y'all a funny story. Rodney was a street hustler. Like, I've seen the photos, 100% verified, legit street hustler, big gold chain, diamonds. Like, I think he even had cornrows, extra long tee, like legit street hustler, right? And so, I haven't shared a whole lot about this, but when I was growing up, my dad was a drug manufacturer. He not like he worked for a pharmaceutical company. Like, he cooked speed, and he ended up in prison. And so when I grew up, I didn't grow up in a really bad area of town or anything like that. But, things were, I guess, different than they seem to be today in the internet age, where people just talk shit all they want, and there's like no risk of getting popped in the mouth because you're just doing it on the internet.
Right.
But I still monitor the way I talk to people, right? If you get me out of my lane, it means I'm ready to fight, right?
Right.
So one night, Rodney and I go to this bottle share, and there's somebody that like brought some pot brownies or something, and this dude's trying to trick Rodney into eating a pot brownie. And let me preface this with, if you're listening and you know who you are, like, you turned out to be a cool ass dude, but you were an asshole that night.
Yes, you are a cool dude. Cool dude.
Yeah. I mean, I've hung out with this dude since then, but he, I don't know. Maybe it was alcohol fueled. So there's pot brownie on the table, and he's trying to trick. He said, "Hey man, you should try one of those brownies. They're really good." But Rodney, being from the streets, like, he immediately knew what was up. So he's like, "Nah, I don't think I can do that." He's like, I don't roll like that. My job's important to me. I could fail a drug test. I don't do that. And the guy goes, "Oh, you don't want to do it because you're a little bitch." And he said it like that. Now, as soon as he said it, like, I knew it was a problem, because for those of you who grew up in like privileged society, you can just call people all kinds of names and nothing happens.
Right.
But for those of us that grew up in, a society that's not as privileged, and like for Rodney, in his case, growing up on the streets, when you called somebody a bitch, someone had to, like, there had to be a showdown, and someone was going to win and someone was going to lose. So as soon as this dude called Rodney a bitch, like, I perked up. Up to that point, I was just like melted into my chair, just chilling.
We had seen it in your face.
And I perked up and I said, "Oh shit. Okay. This is bad. It's about to go down." Right. And Rodney said, "Well, I don't know where you're from, but where I'm from, those are fighting words." And he called Rodney a bitch again. And then he said, "Well, they're fighting words where I'm from too. We can take it out in the front yard if you want." And I was like, "Oh shit." And Rodney's like, "All right, let's go." And the guy's like, "Oh man, I'm just bullshitting." And that made me realize that, there's a really diverse outlooks on life inside the whiskey club, and we all have our own set of like social rules that we follow, and not everybody knows our rules. Right. And so I just thought it'd be really interesting to have you sit down and talk about what it was like for you growing up, and how that informs you today. And then most importantly, how did you get away from that life? Because I mean, everybody that knows you now. So real quick, tell the people what your title is at work right now.
So I'm an account executive for the Southeast region, and I work in the cybersecurity space.
And so your clients would be like large corporations,
right?
And they hire you to come in and advise them on their cybersecurity for, their online platforms, right?
Or on-prem.
On-premises. Okay.
Both. On-prem, hybrid, both.
Yeah.
It's a dual.
And so that's some high-level shit. You got to have certifications and stuff for that. Do you have a college degree?
I do not.
Do you have a high school degree?
I do not.
I don't know if y'all know how much money account executives make, but it's not a small amount. So for somebody to work their way from street hustler to account executive without a high school degree, without a college degree, that's got to be a remarkable story.
Right.
So take us all the way back to your childhood. When did you kind of get exposed to that street type mentality in that life?
Right. Yeah. Well, I hope you got 2 90-minute tapes, man.
Yeah.
I'm just messing with you. I'll wrap it up kind of, fairly quickly, but I mean, it is a little story, but we didn't always grow up in the hood. I was raised military. My father was married to my mother. We can kind of tell at an early age, they really weren't, right for each other. And the marriage was wasn't conducive to what was, needed for us as kids. So, we lived all over the East Coast, from South Carolina, Virginia, Atlanta, New York, Texas, Kansas, the Netherlands. But by time I hit middle school, I think that, my parents were literally at the point where they just didn't have anything in common anymore, and they got a divorce. So I think I was around 11 or 12 when they got a divorce, and my mom, being a stay-at-home mom, really working with taking care of the house while my father was, doing his thing in the military. It was hard to keep a constant job because every 2 to 3 years you're moving, and they got married at a really young age. She was 19, he was 18, and, they were just kind of kids when they had me. So they got a divorce, and we were living in Columbia, South Carolina, in Fort Jackson. If anybody knows anything about South Carolina, Fort Jackson is where we were at. My mom had a little bit of time to stay in the housing area, which was free for military, before she had to leave. So they gave her like 6 some odd months, to figure out like what she wanted to do. And we had a cousin that stayed in Atlanta at the time. Well, quite a few friends in Atlanta, and then some family. But we moved there. Well, with my mom not having any type of jobs, experience, or she didn't really have a high school education as well too. She had to kind of take jobs that were given to her, whether it's beauty supply stores or whatever. And she didn't make a lot of money. And for those who know Atlanta is extremely expensive. So taking the fact that she didn't make a lot of money and Atlanta is expensive, we had to get put into a rough area of Atlanta. And this is the first time that we, when I say we, my brother and I, we were exposed to a different type of lifestyle, and we had to learn really fast on how to adapt to that. My brother was 10 at the time, maybe 9 or 10 at that time, and he's the one who introduced me into gangbanging. So we were out there with, Bloods, Crips, Vice Lords, GDs, all sorts of gang members, because Atlanta is like the spot where all the people from up north migrate down south. You go to Atlanta, nobody's from Atlanta. It's all people from everywhere. So you got people that are just from everywhere, that's a lot more experienced, a lot more fast-paced than we are, that's all about trying to get over on you. So you got to learn to adapt to that type of way. And my brother kind of picked up on some of that stuff a little bit earlier than I did. And I remember the first time that I actually got turned out in this, where my life kind of changed. It was when I met these guys from New York, and they were just the wrong crowd. He came from the heart of Brooklyn. We started doing stuff like beating up people, breaking in houses. My mom used to have a 22 that she used to keep under the bed, just in case somebody broke in. And we used to take her gun. We used to go out and just do some crazy stuff, man. And I started smoking weed at an early age, probably like about 13 or 14. And I love my mom to death, because my mom is in the group. She's probably watching this, but it was hard for her to help us, survive. Like, you got growing boys who eat a lot, who, play sports, who need clothes, we're growing fast. It's hard to provide. So we had to start selling drugs and doing stuff on our own. It was either stealing, it was either, robbing, it was either selling drugs. And then when you get put into that type of environment, you know, you're there. You get a bond with people that you call your brotherhood, and you're looking for a love, to replace, I would say, like that father, that that you're missing out on. So, we were looking for a father. Didn't, my father lived so far away from us, but we found it in the streets. And when you're in the streets, you start to get into some real gangster shit, if I would say, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, I mean, it's like you don't encounter it. It comes to you at some point, because everybody has a background. Everybody has a name in the streets. And at some point you're going to have to prove yours. And that's where it kind of all started, like when I was 13. So fighting, and I hung around these guys from New York, and people in Atlanta didn't like people from New York at that time. So we were beefing with some people from Atlanta, and I ended up calling my dad because I was scared. Like, this was the first time I was exposed to this type of lifestyle. I wasn't used to it. My brother came in full-fledged. He was 100% gangster at the age of 9. He wasn't scared of nothing. And me, I'm his big brother, but I gotta act. I gotta be the protector and act hard. But like, I was really scared. So it got to a point where, me being 13 years old, 14 years old, hanging around these New York guys, we got into a lot of stuff to the point where, like, I think that they wanted to kill us. I God willing, I was never able to find that out, but we got into some, to a really big beef where these guys were like trying to come after us, man. Like, they weren't playing no games. So with all my family, and also being from Oklahoma City, we went to Oklahoma City for a summer, and ended up going back to Atlanta just because it was too expensive for my mom to live. But we were in one of the hardest places of Oklahoma City. Like, if a lot of people think, country, dirt
Right.
road when you think of Oklahoma City, but I mean, there's a lot of poverty and black people that, gang bang in Oklahoma City. And a lot of people don't realize that all the people from California that was in the penitentiary, they go to Oklahoma because Oklahoma has one of the largest amount of penitentiaries in the state of Oklahoma. I believe it's like 14 penitentiaries in Oklahoma. So the third largest, which is McAllister, which is a maximum security penitentiary, everybody from California penitentiaries that are overcrowded go there. So in the 70s, all the gangbangers that left California, they stayed in Oklahoma because they didn't have no money to get back to California. They didn't have no money, no family members to send back to them. So you get out on a work release program, you're in Oklahoma. So guess what? Gangbanging starts. So we grew up in an area in Oklahoma City as well. When I turned about 14 or 15, where then I decided to join a gang. My mom really couldn't take care of us. We were at a point where, like, we were already, when some people say like they're institutionalized, we were kind of like institutionalized from the streets.
Right.
And it just led to doing all sorts of stuff, man. You hang around bad people, but bad things happen. And I've seen my first murder when I was 15. It was the day before 9/11. I was supposed to be in the house, get ready to go to school. And one of my partners called me. He was like, "Hey, man, you should take me up to 89th Street." I'm 15 years old. I got a BMX bike with the pegs on the back. So that's what we would like to do back in the day. So I took him on my bike with he hopped on the back of my pegs, and we get out there, and these this dude and this girl is arguing. This dude is a Crip, the girl, she's a Blood, and they out there arguing. It's about 25 some odd people sitting outside. And like, I hear him calling her, like the B word, like he's like, "Hey, B, get out of my face. B, B, B." And I'm trying to refrain from cursing, because I know it's a lot of women in the group, so I don't want to disrespect anybody. But he's just calling her all sorts of names, and she's telling him, she's like, "Hey, you better get out of my face." And the dude I was with, I guess the girl called him up there. That's why he was asking me to take him there. And he had a 357 snub nose. And he pulled it out his jacket and gave it to her. And like, mind you, we're 15. He's probably like, he was 13 or 14 at this time. And the people that are arguing, I mean, like, they're all our friends. Like, his name was, it's crazy because this is kind of like the stereotypical name that, you hear from black folks, but his name was Junie. Short for Junebug, but we called him Junie. And
just, white people don't know that's a stereotypical name.
well, typically when black folks talk about folks in the hood, they're like, Junebug and all them, like, man, well, that was really his name. But he was arguing with her, and then he came up. One of the dude I was bringing on the bikes, he gave the girl the gun, and then when she got the gun, she put the gun right to his head, like, because they were stepping back talking, like, it kind of got to a point where it kind of settled down. She took the gun and put it right into the back of his head, and she was like, like, yeah, say, talk all that shit now. And I mean, you can see it in this dude's eyes. The dude that was like literally aggressive, trying to beat her up, he was scared for his life, like he's thinking like, he's biting the edge of his gums, and it was like, man, you know what? I pray to God she don't pull this trigger. And in the middle, she's like, you know what? Say something. Bow, just pulled the clip, and I'm standing like I'm closer to the situation than what I'm sitting, like as far as from you, I'm like maybe a half a foot, a little bit closer to, as it happened, because I'm trying to tell her, like, man, come on, man, put the gun up. And she just pulled the trigger, bow, blew his brain, smooth out. He fell on the ground, and I mean, like, he was still kind of conscious, but he was kind of out of it. I mean, I had brain fragments, everything on my jacket. And I got to the point where, like, I mean, like, that freaked me out. I paused. One of the older dudes that was from the neighborhood, he was hitting me like, hey, man, Rodney, take your ass home, go home. And I'm just standing here just like shocked. And I mean, he hit me, slapped me until I kind of came to my senses, went back home, cried, all the way back home, told my mom what happened. And, I'm looking on the news the next day, and I'm like, man, I know they got to put this on the news. I want to see if he lived or if he died. And boom, I see the Twin Towers get hit by an airplane. So I will always remember the day before 9/11, because that was the night that I saw my, like, my first murder. I was 14, 15 years old. So, and the trend just kind of gradually, upheld, from gang banging, stealing, selling drugs. I got kicked out of high school when I was in the 9th grade. My mom made me go to Job Corps to get my GED. I tried to go to college because I got my GED, got a few high school credits, got kicked out for drugs, like literally my second semester. So I've always was smart, but I just didn't apply myself. So, I mean, that's why, I think I have so much motivation now, because I've learned to take the common sense that I've learned in the streets and apply that to the real world. And, I'm here now, like, I have to tell this because like, I got to, if it was never for my wife, I would probably never be in this position where I am now. I'd probably be never talking to you, because I met her when I was partially in college on this website called Black Planet. And this is like a dating site for Black people. And I met her. I was selling drugs at the time. I met her because she smoked weed. Yes, babe, I'm putting you on blast in front of everybody, but she doesn't smoke anymore. She found me there. We started dating. She had a boyfriend, and I told her, I was like, man, you're gonna be my girl one day. And eventually, she became my girl. And she got to the point where she started to see a lot of the lifestyle that I lived, and I think it kind of intrigued her. Like, at some point, especially being that young, 19, 20 years old.
This is Randy Sullivan with RSHST Capital, LLC, and the host of Bourbon Real Talk. Producing a podcast is time-consuming and expensive, and Bourbon Real Talk wants to maintain its integrity by not promoting products or services that it doesn't believe in. For this reason, I have opted to have my funding company sponsor this program. RSHST Capital is the first of its kind funding company that provides pay-at-close funding to home sellers out of their equity. If you have a home to sell, need money for renovations or repairs to maximize your profit, money to stop pending foreclosure or to keep your mortgage current, or cash for really anything, then look into RSHST Capital. This program is simple. We verify that you have equity, approve you for a funding amount. You have access to that cash at practically a moment's notice for only a nominal fee. This program is raising sellers cash after closing by tens of thousands of dollars, stopping foreclosures and changing people's financial future. You pick your real estate agent, your contractor, and have access to actual cash or contracting expenses with zero upfront cost. This is a nationwide program, so if you have any curiosity about how it works, please look us up at rshstcapital.com, Facebook, or just give us a call at 214-385-9101.
Like the fast style and the fast lifestyle, it's intriguing to people who are outside of it. Like, it kind of like draws you into it. And she starts seeing, you know, like us hanging out with guns and stuff all day, you know, going through fights and beating people up and just, you know, getting shot at. I mean, like, even though you think about it now and like, man, like that seems scary, but like when you're wild and you just out there, I mean, it's almost fun at that time. So she kind of got caught in that web. And then man, she did a lot, man. She didn't swallow weed for me, put up all sorts of drugs, bonding me out in and out of jail, and to the point where she got tired of it. And she was like, hey, you got to do something different. You know, like like if you want to be with me, I can't keep, you know, going through this. So I had to make a decision. You know, I had, you know, chicks that I could mess with left and right, but she kind of gave me a challenge. And I was like, you know, like this is something different. I think I want this. So she told me the first step was to put down, you know, the drugs and leave the people alone that I was hanging out with. So I did that. She introduced me into church. She asked me if I could cut my hair, which that was tough because I had braids for like for like 12 some odd years. My hair was long. So I mean, like, that was really tough. I cut my hair off for love. Yeah. And then she said, hey, you know, like there's this job fair.
Well, before we move on to the transition, I've got some questions for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I got answers.
So one thing that a lot of people that didn't grow up around anyone like that, they don't understand,
right,
that there is a lot of actual social pressure in that environment to engage in that type of high risk, you know, dangerous, illegal activity. And if you don't, then you kind of make yourself a target. Did you experience that?
Of course. You had to make decisions like that every day. I mean, if you think about just, you know, what it take to, you know, on a daily to maintain a lifestyle, I mean, you either gotta make a name for yourself or you get the label of being a punk. So you know, fights, folks picking on my brother, you know, like we lived in a neighborhood where there were Bloods and Crips. And we lived also in a neighborhood where our rival enemies were like less than a quarter mile away. So we're talking about shootouts and stuff all the time. And if you didn't go back and go shoot at some people after they done shot up your house or killed one of your friends, you'd be considered a punk. And, you know, and if you are considered a punk, they can do whatever they want to do to you. You know, like if you out here selling drugs, they're going to take it from you. And what you going to do? Mm-hmm. You know, like now you got a decision to make. Somebody take your stuff. What you going to do? You don't want to be labeled a punk. So, you know, like it was decisions that was, you know, had to be made all the time. And, you know, sometimes, you know, some decisions, and for the record, I've never killed anybody. So let me state that I've never killed nobody. But I mean, you know, like sometimes you just had to do some crazy stuff, man. And the Lord got me out of all that. So, I mean, I'm thankful. And also, I told you were going to need 2 90-minute tapes. So I'm trying to condense all this stuff down, man. It's hard to condense a crazy lifestyle.
No, we're doing all right on time. We're doing all right on time. So one of the other things that I was curious about, I saw this picture of you. I think you're around 14 years old, and you had on like this super expensive necklace that you had like custom made or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, tell us about that, because you know you're living in an environment where people are struggling just to make ends meet, but you're, you know, hitting the streets and hustling at a very young age. Mm-hmm. And are you selling drugs to, like, you know, addicts that are dangerous? Or, I mean, I'm guessing most of your customers were probably adults that were older than you.
Oh, yeah.
And you're making enough money to go out and have like these luxury items that no one around you can afford. And I'm sure that gave you some social status. Like, how much money were you able to make?
Man. And like, and everything I'm stating is true. Like, my mother's in this group, so I'm pretty sure she's gonna watch this, so she can call my bluff if I'm lying. I mean, I was giving my mom bit money, helping her pay her bills. I mean, I was making. I'm not saying I was making like, you know, millions of dollars, but I was making enough money to where, it kind of, you know, gives you a general idea like how my personality is today, like where I give stuff, like I'm always giving away. I was like that even back then. Like I never was one to say, you know, I want to make all the money. Like we had what we call the trap, or like a dope house. And at that time being, you know, I was so young and dumb. My mama's house was the spot. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, we had our own little section in her house where we used to sell dope at, or we used to be on the corner and sell dope. And I never sold cocaine or crack. My thing was more weed because I knew you didn't get as much penitentiary time for selling weed versus you did with crack. But I could also make a lot of money selling weed. A little bit harder because the people who smoke weed, aren't going to come as fast as crackheads. So I was making a lot of money selling weed, and I used to have people come up to the house and hang with me. And like when people come walk up, I'd be like, "Hey, you can get that one." I'll get what we'll like switch off. I'll get the first one, you get the next one, and I'll get the one after that, and then the next one goes to the person sitting next to you. It'd be like 5 of us up there, and I used to share the money, split the money. So I was probably, if I was to say, how much money I was making, around 15 to 17 to maybe 18 some odd years old. It varied, man. I mean, I started off, slow, making maybe about $300 something a day, to making somewhere around $1,500 to maybe $3,000 a week. And I'm like in my teenage years, man. I mean, like, that's a lot of money,
Well, and that's one of the things that when I was growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and my dad got put in prison for manufacturing meth, I can remember this one day I came over to the house and he had, like, I want to say 28,000 or 33,000. It was somewhere in that range in cash, and it was all laying out on his bed. And as a kid, man, I thought that was all the money in the world, right?
Yeah.
And I hate to admit this, but if you gave me $33,000 today, it wouldn't fix my problems.
Nope.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
But when you're living in that environment where everybody's struggling to get by, if you've got an extra $10,000, I mean, that would be the equivalent of, being Bill Fullerton in our group. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're the top dude, right? Like you have more, you've got way more money than everybody else.
Right.
And you've got, so any amount of disposable income, allows you to do some things that are going to give you street cred. And you have a drive to do those things. Like, I'm always fascinated by rappers that get money and then they like buy all of this like ridiculous looking jewelry that's super expensive because, I mean, it's made out of really expensive materials.
Right.
And I'm like, who does this appeal to? And it's like, well, their audience, because a lot of the people that listen to this, like, they place a lot of value on that type of stuff.
Right.
But me, I'm just like, I just would have bought some rent houses.
Right.
But I think it's important for the audience to understand that there is a different mentality out there. Because all of the social strife that we're going through right now, I mean, we've had a black president, but racism isn't gone, right?
Nope.
There's still a lot of problems out there in society that need to be fixed. And so long as the people that aren't part of that culture have no understanding of what's going on inside of it, there can be no connection, there can be no bridge, there can be no progress made.
Right.
And so that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this, because I know that most of the people that are that are listeners of my program and are in the whiskey club, in any of the whiskey clubs, are pretty affluent, and they probably didn't have a whole lot. I mean, I know there's a lot of people pull themselves up by their bootstraps, so I'm not trying to take that away from you, but a lot of people haven't had exposure to this type of thing. I mean,
I deal with that racism stuff even to this day.
Really?
Yeah. Crazy.
We're gonna circle back around to that. So, so you were dealing drugs, you were making quite a bit of money, you're helping to take care of your family. You're also making a name for yourself in the streets because you're sharing the wealth, you're sharing customers, right? So that probably got you a lot of protection from other people, right? Because you had a good reputation, people liked you. And like, Rodney's smart. Like, to be honest with you guys, like, I got Rodney into the whiskey clubs and stuff, but like, I just,
Tell him how long ago.
I don't know, how long ago was it?
Less than a year.
Like, yeah, like somewhere around a year ago. But I didn't even know what to do inside the whiskey clubs until Rodney got in, and he takes off, and I'm like, oh shit, I need to catch up. And so all of a sudden I start like getting involved and doing videos and giving whiskey away and all that stuff. I mean, anytime I ever saw somebody give whiskey away, I was like, I don't get it. Like, why are you doing that?
Right.
But one of the things that I think the streets taught you is the value of having people on your side, because back then, if you didn't have people on your side, you might have been one of the people that needed to murder someone just to protect yourself, right?
Or get murdered yourself.
Murdered yourself.
Yeah.
But you found a way to to live inside the streets without having to use that level of violence. Man, I know you did a lot of, bad stuff, but I'm just saying, I think that your smarts led you to, a path that allowed you to make friends with people that you maybe otherwise wouldn't have. Right.
Right.
So I think that that's an important distinction. And part of what I want people to get out of this, if anyone ever does listen to this, that is part of that lifestyle, there is a path out. Right. And Rodney found it. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So, so that was kind of your past life. That's where you were at. You met your girl, right? And she starts putting pressure on you and saying like, hey, if you want to be with me in the long term, I'm going to need you to do some changing.
Right. And
so you end up going to this job fair. And tell us about what happened at the job fair, because this story is like hilarious to me.
I've actually went to quite a few job fairs, but
the one where you got hired by Dell or whatever.
Now this one is the Dell kind of came on a little bit after that one, but I went to the job fair and I had braids and stuff in my hair. And I had a gold grill at this time too. And I had a gold grill and I went up in the job fair. One thing that, like kind of differentiate, myself between folks in the streets is that growing up in the military, growing up overseas, we kind of talked proper from what the folks in the streets would say. They always like, man, you talk proper. We these trying to be these hardcore dudes like, hey man, give me your bike. I'm gonna take it. Right. It was kind of hard to kind of get in the streets when you talk real proper. You didn't sound like you grew up in there. So we got a lot of flack for that. But anyways, I go to this job fair. I look like I'm from the streets. Like if you looked at me, you'd probably be kind of scared. I'm not saying I was like a big scary person, but I'm just saying like for the most white person, they look at me and would be, stereotypical. I'm like, oh, he's a thug. But when I go to the job fair, I know how to turn that light switch on and off. So I go in there, I show them that I have a good head on my shoulders and I'm speaking to them, I pronunciate all of my words and I'm showing that I'm not just this black person that you think that, comes from the street and it's dumb. And I was talking to this lady that worked at I believe it was called Stratford or something like that. I forgot the name of the company. It's the company. No, it's like, I think Williams-Sonoma bought them out, or it's like a subsidiary of Williams-Sonoma. But I was talking to them and she was like, man, you were like really smart. She was like, I can get you the Hartford. That's the name of the company. She was like, I can get you one at the Hartford, but you're going to have to cut your hair. Can you do that? And I was like, I don't know if I can do that one. I don't know. And then she was like, well, is your gold teeth, are they permanent? And I was like, no. She was like, you think you can take your gold teeth out? I was like, yeah, I can do that. I can take my gold teeth out. And she was like, well, let's go ahead and try to get you a job. Yeah, I know the hiring manager, the person over HR. Let's go ahead and get you a job there. And I ended up taking the test. They gave me a personality test and I failed it. So I didn't get that job. So that's
for the record, you actually can't fail a personality test. It's just personality. But sometimes your personality is not a good fit for the job they're hiring.
Well, when I say failed the personality, it wasn't what they were looking for.
Right. Like yeah. I don't want y'all to be nervous to take personality tests. I used to be a personality test coach. So, all right. So then fast forward, you meet a white dude, and this was the start of your technology career.
Right.
At this point, I think you'd cut your hair, right?
Yeah, I did it for my wife on Valentine's Day. At that time, she was my girlfriend.
Yeah. And so you go on the interview, and when you told me the story, you said, like, imagine, like, the swagger of a street hustler.
Yep.
So tell us that story.
Man, I remember this. Like, my wife at this point told me, she was like, hey, you need to go find a job. And if you don't find a job, like, we can't be together. It wasn't necessarily like that, but basically that's what she was saying. So I was on, resume builder and, all these little places trying to submit for jobs. And Dale called me one day and they were like, I need you to come in for an interview tomorrow. I was like, oh my God, I don't have anything to wear. So I went to my pawpaw's house. We were the same size. I was like, hey man, I need something to wear to an interview because I don't have no interview clothes. So he gave me like these black slacks, black socks, a white shirt with a black and white polka dot tie and some suspenders. And I went up in there. I'm like, you know what? I mean, I got game. I was real cocky back then too. So I was like, man, I got game. I'm just gonna go in here and be myself, So I'll go up in there. Yeah, I got my legs all crossed. I don't want to hit the court, but got my legs all crossed and stuff. I'm kind of like just sitting back, almost like I'm the shit, And the guy's asking me these questions. I don't remember the questions because I was 20 at the time, and he's just asking me all these different questions. How would I do this? What would I go about doing that? Why do I want to be successful? And he was like, dude, I want to hire you right now. And I'm like, yeah, I can start right now. I can start tomorrow, next week, whenever you need me. And he's like, boy, I like your style. And that right there was the very first part of me coming from the streets, going into Dell as a consumer sales rep, selling computers to people like us every day that needs personal computers.
And so what's fascinating to me about that is that I'm imagining like this lily white hiring manager,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And you come in and he's used to getting like the typical, like, nerdy guy that's like, I want to make my family proud and blah, blah, blah. And then you come in like with this street swagger, like over the top confidence. And you're just like, yeah, dog, I just go out there and crush that shit. That's what I do, and he's like, this is the kind of energy that I need on my team.
Yep. Exactly. I got lucky.
So you get hired in the technology industry, and then from there you just continue to progress. Is that accurate?
Well, I mean, you got to think about this too. Like, I've always been somewhat of a hustler, whether it was selling CDs, selling weed, whatever. Like, I already knew how to sell. I know what I needed to do to get my product off. So I'm in an organization where I'm not selling anything illegal now. Like, I'm selling legit stuff. You just tell me how to sell it, and I'll go sell it. So I started to make some progress, and then like about 6 months in, I was getting a lot of recognition because I was outperforming like the majority of my peers. So they put me into this like what they call the XPS unit. So if anybody ever worked with Dell and know about XPS laptops, those are very expensive gaming laptops or desktop computers. And that's the division that everybody from the consumer side wanted to be in because you can make more money because the computers are more expensive. So they put me there, and I ended up becoming like a team lead. And like I was displaying like leadership qualities. And like I'm starting to see like, man, this square life is actually not too bad. Like I think I like it, but I was actually going from work with all these corporate people every day back into the hood, doing everyday activities the moment I stepped off from work. Like literally going from turning the light switch on to being corporate Rodney, going back to the hood, doing gangbanging stuff, man. And that lasted for about 4 some odd years.
Really?
Yep.
Didn't you say that like somebody that you worked with found out that you had access to drugs and they like asked you to?
Oh my God. So yeah. So like I said, I still had that swagger about me. So back then, like when you work for Dell and at the, it's a call center. So you don't have to dress up. You don't have to, put on business casual clothes. You go with whatever you have on. So I just had regular hip hop wear, So like I'm out in there with I had a gold bezel team necklace. I used to wear that every day. I used to wear big earrings and all that stuff, and hats to the back. I mean, like expensive clothes. So I guess they seemed like I had some swagger about me that let them know like I was probably connected to the streets. And one day, a manager came up and asked me. He was like, "Hey, man, I don't even know how to say this, man." He was like, "I need to know where I can score some cocaine." And I was like, "Man, like what the hell I look like to you? Talking about, can I score cocaine? I mean, what I look like to you? A drug dealer?" Like, yeah, I know where to get it, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm offended. I'm gonna get it for you.
Yeah,
I'm gonna charge you extra though.
Like, man, I got offended, but I'm sitting there thinking like, but I actually know where to get it. So like, I guess the typical stuff that they think about you actually worked because I knew where to get it. But that was crazy. I mean, like, getting approached into the corporate world, which also led me to believe like that movie Wolf of Wall Street, man. The stuff I saw working at Dell, I believe to be 100% true in almost any organization, man. Like I've seen some powerful people do some crazy stuff, man.
That's awesome.
Crazy. Yeah.
So you progressed, you ended up getting into cybersecurity, advances, doing really well. You ended up marrying your girl, you got a family. You're moving into areas like Prosper and all that stuff. So now that you're kind of on the other side of it. This is Randy Sullivan with the Randall Sullivan Home Selling Team and the host of Bourbon Real Talk. Producing a podcast is time consuming and expensive, and Bourbon Real Talk wants to maintain its integrity by not promoting products and services that it doesn't believe in. For this reason, I've opted to have my real estate team sponsor this program. The Randall Sullivan Home Selling Team has operated since 2008. We've sold almost 500 homes. We have proprietary programs that make a massive difference to the outcome of our clients, and we service the entire North Texas area. If you live in North Texas and you need to buy or sell a home, please give us a chance to explain how our services could benefit you. We understand that not all of our listeners live in North Texas. We also know that not all real estate agents are created equal. If you need a real estate agent outside of North Texas, the Randall Sullivan Home Selling Team has access to tools to help you find a highly qualified agent in your area. The service is free for you, and we stick around through the end of the process to help you with your transaction, even when we're not your agent. If you have a real estate transaction in your future, please reach out to us at randallsullivanteam.com, Facebook, Instagram, or just give us a call at 214-385-9101. What has kind of happened with all of the people that you were close with when you were younger and in the streets? Do you still have connection with them?
Oh yeah, of course. I almost all the time. I wouldn't say every day, but at least on a weekly basis. So just a real quick story, because I got to tell you how that transition actually happened when I actually left the streets alone. I got a job, which my girl wanted, so she couldn't say nothing about me going back to the streets because I got a job.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't selling drugs, so I used to still go back in the streets. But what literally got me out of the streets was two things. It was a person and a situation, and this guy's name was Clint Mosley, who will forever be in my favor. He's seen the potential that I had, and he was like, man, you kind of got to change your ways, man. Like you coming in here looking like you ready to go to the club on a Friday night. He's like, like you're going to get judged off of the way that you carry yourself. He said, you have so much potential. Like, why don't you dress for the job that you want? Like he, asked me what I want to do and where I want to go, and, like the things I wanted. And I thought about it and told him, and he was like, do you know God? And I was like, a little bit, like at this time, I didn't know what Moses was, who he was. I didn't know the difference between God or Jesus. I didn't know anything about the Bible. So we start having, Bible study courses at the office every lunch, and just kind of got me closer into God. And like once I start really getting that relationship, he started holding me accountable to certain things. And at this time, I just had my daughter, and he was like, "Hey, are you living with your girlfriend while you have this daughter?" And I was like, "Yeah." He said, "I want to start challenging you to take your life to the next level." He said, "What you're doing is not great in God's eyes." He would never judge me, but he would like let the Bible talk to me. And he was like, "I want to challenge you to marry your girl. Like y'all been together forever. Like you sitting here living with her. Y'all probably out here, having sexual activities and doing all sorts of stuff. I know you are because you got a kid." So he was like, either find a place, try to go, try to be abstinent, and uh move out, do what you got to do, but like let's do things right in the steps of God. And I was like, well, I ain't moving out. Like that just ain't gonna happen, and I ain't about to be abstinent. So I guess I'm gonna marry her. So that process right there kind of like changed my life. And once I actually got married and then start having these courses of understanding the Bible, I got into a men's Monday night Bible study where I start leading that and hosting that, and it start really changing my life around. And I was like, you know what, I want something different for this lifestyle. So if my friends from the streets ain't going to be on the same thing that I'm about, I just can't hang with you, because I can't jeopardize my life anymore. Like I really want to have a career. I really want to have a big house. Like I want to live like a regular human being. So continue to to do that, but at the same time I was being like a role model for the people in the neighborhood. So in the Black community, I don't know any other community because I'm all, I can only talk about the Black community. But in the Black community, man, it people get envious when you leave. They tell you that they want you to be happy, and they tell you they want you to be successful and they want to be happy for you. But the moment you actually start doing those things, you start to see people, change. You start to see people, start asking for money, and when you can't provide it, they turn to a whole nother human being. And it's just like a lot of drama and hatred towards you for trying to do something that they can't. So it led me to, to leaving Oklahoma City because I felt like I couldn't prosper unless I got out of that place because it was holding me down. And I'm moving to Dallas. And once I moved to Dallas, like my life just completely excelled. I still communicate with the people from the hood because now they see that I was actually doing what I said I was going to do, and that like they see the lifestyle that I'm living. They see the people that I hang around. They see that I'm not, nowhere near where I used to be, and I don't act the same way. And I'm being a role model for people. So they tell me every day. I get inbox messages from. This is funny too. So I got friends that's still in the penitentiary where they got Facebook pages and all that. And they ping me all the time. You're like, man, Rodney, man, I'm happy for you, man. I'm proud of you, man. I'm glad you're doing your thing. And I get stuff like that all the time from them. And I just try to send out little positive messages and stuff all the time. So I will never, ever, ever turn my back from the people from the streets because that's where I came from. And I'm not afraid to tell people my past. Some people, from our neighborhoods, they get out of our neighborhoods and they go do whatever they're going to do with their life, and then they don't either deal with the people from their community. They want to act like they're no longer black. We call those people Uncle Toms. And I don't want to be that. So I try to show people from my neighborhood, like, you can do it too, but you got to change.
Right. So. Yeah. I mean, I've had a couple of experiences, when I've been hanging out with you where somebody called you and like you put on speaker and it's somebody that's like, I think somebody broke out of prison or something. You'd be like, yo, Junebug broke out of prison, but I don't think he's coming back to the hood because he ratted on so-and-so and he ain't welcome here and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, shit. Right. Rodney's still connected to the streets. I mean, and, that's such an inspiration to me, and it should be to other people, that somebody that is that connected to that opposite lifestyle, people still feel comfortable calling you and, telling you those things, but you're trying so hard to be different from that and also pull people up out of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and appreciate that. Thank you.
And that's why I wanted to have you on Bourbon Real Talk, because I feel like this is a story that's going to be helpful to people. Now, how many siblings did you have?
So I can't answer that question without telling you the story first off.
Okay.
So as of today, I have 6 sisters and 5 brothers. 4 because one of them got killed 4 years ago. He got killed right on my other brother's doorstep, because he was also gang related as well. But and the reason why I have all these siblings is because when I was 18, I found out that the dad that I thought was my dad, and the one I still call my dad to this day, I found out he wasn't my dad, and like that was kind of like detrimental to me, I mean, like, if anybody was to ever find out that your dad was not your dad, I mean, I don't care how grown you are, that's not easy to take.
Right.
So I didn't want to believe it because everybody say, man, y'all talk just alike, y'all sound alike, you kind of look alike, but he's like super light skinned. Like almost white, like, like, so I mean, like, I'm super dark skinned, he's like super light skinned. My mom isn't light skinned, she's kind of like caramel complexion. It was like, I don't know how, almost white man and a caramel woman can make a dark skinned child. So I mean, like, that should have been a red flag right there. But I just didn't want to believe it. And my mom showed me a picture of this man, who she said was my real father. And I was like, nope, he ain't. No, my dad is my dad. And I looked at the picture, I broke down because I was like, oh God, I look just like him, man. This is my dad. So he has the vast majority of the kids. It was me and my brother growing up from my mom, but I and then I also had 2 other brothers and a sister. But I inherited, 5 sisters and 2 brothers from my biological father.
Damn. And in this environment, how many of your brothers have been in the penitentiary?
All of them. No. I have step brothers that, I call my brothers. In my family, like, we ain't no step brothers, no, like, we're brothers. Right.
That's
So,
how I grew up. And it freaks other people out, because I just grew up because I had some, stepsisters and stuff. And
right.
so whenever I got married and I'd refer to my sisters-in-law as my sisters, like my wife would correct me. I'm like, why are you correcting me? Like,
Right.
they're my sisters now, right?
Yeah.
Like I signed the paper.
Right.
They're mine now.
Right.
But that's just how I am. But I wonder if that's not, a cultural thing as well too, right? Like,
Well, in the Black culture, everybody's our family. So you don't never know. Like my best friend of 16 years, just found out that this dude I called my cousin was not really my cousin, and he's my best friend. He knows my whole family. Like it was a guy that I grew up with. My mom's really good friend. He was like my cousin. I used to always call him my cousin. I still call him my cousin to this day. But we really ain't cousins. Black
Right.
folks do that stuff all the time.
Oh, I know.
Like you, my cousin.
Oh, I'm all right with that.
Yeah,
I constantly refer to Rodney as my brother from another mother.
Yeah.
And I like to make jokes about how similar we look.
You can't tell by the hair.
No one can tell us apart. Like Rodney can't even grow a beard. And
Yeah.
I got a beard.
And I'm mad about that too, man. Biological father just messed me all the way up.
Oh man, it's so unfair. No, but so you went through all of this stuff. I feel like you've really pulled yourself up by your bootstraps. You're on a great career path. You're still trying to pull people up. You're still trying to help people. But you're, fully integrated in polite society. I mean, most of the people that hear this, that know you, are going to be completely shocked by this.
Yes.
And one of the things that I wanted to discuss with you is, racism.
Mm-hmm.
And so, now you're successful. You have nice cars. Actually, Rodney's kind of conservative. He can afford a much nicer car, but like he's frugal, except for when it comes to whiskey, apparently. So he lives in a great house, all that stuff. But you still experience racism even to today, right?
Before you answer that, I don't like the way you just said, oh, he can afford a nice car. Oh, actually, he drives a piece of shit.
No, he don't drive a POS. He just got. What do you drive? You have a?
I have a
Honda?
2015 Honda. It's not a luxury vehicle, but I mean it's still nice. It's a Honda Accord, year 2015.
No, I'm not talking shit. I'm just saying, like,
I was really.
If he wanted a 8 Series BMW or an S Class or whatever, he could have it if he wanted it. He's conservative. He likes to stack his cash from back in the hood days. Like he learned that. So, anyways, moving on. So you still experience racism today, right? And
Yep.
And can you share some examples with the people so that they can understand what it's like, even for somebody who like has trained himself to talk in such a way that you do not sound like you're from the hood.
Mm-hmm.
You don't dress like you're from the hood.
Nope.
You don't drive a vehicle like you're from the hood. You don't live in the hood. You make plenty of money. You still experience racism
till this day. I mean, I remember working at Dell, and I'm not going to say I experienced a lot of racism. Like, it's funny, to talk about that. Like, I still experience racism, but it's funny to see like where I experienced racism at. Like, before I moved out here, I was working for this company called Community Builders, and my whole territory was the state of Oklahoma. And I used to have to drive out to like some very, very crazy places like Mangum and places you don't even know that's on the map that's there. And I mean, there's like one house every 2 miles, and I'm trying to sell them, like windows and siding and stuff like that. And I pull up and these big biker dudes with long beards. I'm saying like, I'm gonna die. Like I'm literally about to die. 7 o'clock at night. It's dark. Nobody can hear me scream. I'm about to die. And they were some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. Like hey, you want dinner? Like you can if it's too late, you can even stay the night here if you don't want to drive back to Oklahoma City. And I'm like, man, these are people I would expect to be racist.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones that I've dealt with, all the racism has been in the corporate environment. Every situation I've dealt with has been in the corporate world. And that's where like I would least expect it. But I remember when I worked at Dell, I was talking to a customer and they was gonna send me a fax. It was just like a customer that like called, like just spontaneously, and it was asking questions, and then found out I guess I was black. They said, "Oh, let me send you a fax. I'll send you stuff and the stuff that we need," and it had attention to the nigger. Yeah, crazy. I came in the office one day. I had a batch of bananas sitting on my desk. I guess they were trying to call me a monkey. I've had, sticky notes on my car, calling me a nigger when I lived in apartments. Um, like, like sometimes you don't always have to be called names to experience the racism. I mean, like you could get the looks from certain people, like if you're walking down the street and you see somebody cross the road that, they think that you're going to steal from them. Uh, I mean, it's just been a lot of situations. I mean, the last company I just left, CA Technologies, um, my boss who's there with me now, and I mean, and I'm not going to say any names, but like my boss is on this page, and he was with me at my last job. Somebody actually, my old boss got fired because of a racist thing she said to me, and my coworkers didn't like it, so they went to HR and said something about it. I'm not going to go into depth about it because like I have a few coworkers here, that's in the page, and I just don't want to just do anything just outrageous. But I mean, because like somebody lost their job, and that like that was in the work environment, like face to face in a team meeting, so I experience it, like every now and again. But one thing that people don't realize, that I really want to talk about is that, black people tend to be very paranoid in the workspace because we think we've dealt with so much racism, stuff, and the way people do things, and being told like, we can't come into nightclubs when we know, like you're just being racist. You don't want us in your establishment. To like, you like that does something to your psyche. I mean, like it makes you think a certain way. Like now you're paranoid that, anywhere you go, you kind of gotta, like watch what you say or watch what you do because you don't want to be, labeled as a thug or, like the typical and stereotypical thug black man. And it makes you paranoid when you go into the corporate world. Like if I had a boss who would probably write me up, and I'm not saying this happened, but I was giving you an experience. Like I'll just give you an example. I've seen situations where there were Caucasian individuals in the workplace that would come to work doing drugs. Apparently, you can tell they're on drugs, sleeping while in the office, being caught numerous times, coming in late, and never got fired. Never got fired. This person actually had to quit. And then you have a black person that comes into work 15 minutes late one day and gets fired on the spot. Whether, it was just a coincidence or not, like, what is that going to do to you from like, you can be like, man, that was some racist shit. Like, I've seen plenty of people that was a different skin color do the same thing. And, they get to keep their jobs. And, you get, discriminated against certain jobs when you walk in. Like with me, since I talk proper, I've always heard that, like over the phone, I don't sound black. So I've walked in the interviews and they're like, oh God, like shocked, shocked that a black man's coming in, and you see, like how they're no longer interested, like once you get in, and like think about what that does to you from a psychological perspective. And we tend to take that stuff out and be a little bit more vocal at work and say, like, man, that was racist to you, things like that. And then I always get from people that aren't black, especially white people, that, oh, you just like, everybody's not racist, you're just tripping. And it's like, you haven't walked a mile in my shoes. You don't know why I'm tripping like this. Like I can't go into my vice president's office and talk to him the way that you talk to him. Like I will get fired. Like
Right.
I've been fired for that. And like those are just some of the things that, like, I want people to understand. Like even though, like we always get judged for thinking like everybody's being racist to us. But I mean, we grew up in a world where blacks used to get hanged, burnt, killed for looking at white women. Like, so I mean, they're like, this stuff does exist. You know what I mean? Like, it's not over with. We're not just tripping to be tripping. Like I've seen police officers, beat up, people that were my friends, and beat their mamas up for no apparent reason because they're asking you, why are you putting my child in handcuffs? So I mean, like, you think about like what that does to you as a human being. Like you think everything is racist. So like I just try to be kind to everybody. Like I try to show them that like all black people aren't thugs. Like all black people ain't bad. So I mean, that's the way that I act. Because I've dealt with so much racist stuff, and it's probably because they have this stereotypical thought process of like every black person's bad, forget them, when that's not true.
Right. Well, and I don't know if you ever watched the TV show Scandal,
I did.
but the main character, I think her name was Olivia.
Olivia Pope.
Yeah, and her dad used to say, "You have to be twice as good
Yep,
to get half as much."
that is true.
And when I first heard that, I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But as I've had deeper conversations with people that grew up in the Black culture, I've started to realize that every Black person that I am friends with has had these types of experiences that shape how they see the world.
Right.
And I want to get those stories out. I want there to be a level of understanding, one, so that we can all come together and we can make the change that needs to be made, so that we treat everybody equally, regardless of what color or not equally, but we judge each individual based on them and not what we expect them to be based on how they look. You know what I'm saying? Because there's bad white people and there's bad Black people.
Of course.
Right? I mean, you'd be an idiot if you were interacting with, somebody that seemed dangerous and you acted like they weren't dangerous. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I am suggesting that, if you're out there and you don't have any Black friends to ask this question to, or if you've never had this conversation with somebody that's African American, and you do have some Black friends, one, if you don't have any Black friends, stop being a fucking asshole and go get some Black friends.
Like, hold on. Hold on. I like being a token Black guy. So if you gonna get a Black friend, make it me.
Make it like Rodney. But two, if you have Black friends, I challenge you.
Right.
Go ask them. Have you experienced racism? Right? We've had a Black president. Does that mean racism is over? No, not at all. Like I've heard, because I asked this question to all my Black friends because this is something that I'm passionate about and I'm interested in. I mean, I've heard stories of a dude sitting inside of a $70,000 SUV being drug out of his car by a cop that like pulled a gun on him and all that stuff, and all he's doing is sitting there on his cell phone. I've heard stories. Oh, yeah. I heard a story about a guy that got pulled over by the same police officer 17 days in a row when he was driving to his 4,000 square foot house in Plano. 17 days in a row, same cop pull him over, pull him out of the car, put him in cuffs, and search his vehicle.
I've been through that as well.
Right. And so, like, when you hear these stories and you realize, like, well, maybe there is something to this. Not that we all got to jump on the, everything's racist bandwagon, but we need to acknowledge that it's there so that we can.
I want to make one statement too before you move past that. So I noticed you said that, like, hey, white folks that don't have Black friends, get you one. Because I'm going to put this out on my page as well too. Not just the whiskey page, but I want to talk to my Black people as well. I mean, because Black folks, I want to watch how I say this, because they, in our community, we say Black folks can't be racist, which I'm not even going there because I don't even want to start an argument. But I will say to my Black friends, go out and get you some white friends too. Like, all white people are not bad. Like, they're actually pretty cool. And I will say this, nothing against none of my Black friends. I love all y'all to death. But boy, when it comes in time of need, all my white friends were there first. That's all I'm going to say. I love all y'all though. I love my Black people and my family and cousins, everything. But boy, when I needed help, boy, my white folks was like, hey, I pick up the phone. They already at the house. I'm like, God, no, boy, how you know what I was going through?
I think Dave Chappelle has a bit about that, about his white friend. He calls his white friend when he gets arrested, and he'd be like, I'll be on my way down there right now. This is preposterous.
Oh, yeah. Very true.
And the Black friends be like, wait a minute, what'd you do? I don't know if I want to come down.
Yeah, man, I can call anyone like in my phone right now, Black from the streets, grew up with, and be like, hey man, I need like $50, man. I'm doing bad. My lights they about to take my kids away. I need 50. Like, shoot, man, I ain't got it right now. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. But then I call my one white friend, like, hey man, I need $50, man. My lights, oh sure, you want 25,000? I'll give it to you. Just pay me back. It's like, God, dog, man. I'm like, it's crazy, man. Like you kind of get to see, the best of both worlds when you come from that environment and being where I'm at. And I mean, I love it because I get to experience life in a whole nother perspective that I would have ever imagined when I was growing up in the streets, man. And I mean, I'm blessed, and yeah, I got to thank God. Thank you, God.
That's awesome. And your wife, who helped push you in the right direction.
And first and foremost,
Yeah.
First and
Maybe
foremost.
not more than God. That made me uncomfortable. But
well, first and foremost, after God.
Exactly.
After God.
Yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. So if people want to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do that? Is it through
Facebook? We are mean from a social media perspective, right?
Yeah.
So you know you're gonna get my
I like to give no.
Yeah,
but
no.
I like to give everybody an opportunity. I mean, Rodney wants to promote Someone Say Whiskey, so
that's right. We want to promote.
I do. I mean, I support all whiskey clubs, but I'm a founding member with Rodney of Someone Say Whiskey.
Yeah, that's right, co-founder, baby.
And I think we've got a great thing going on. So if you're interested in whiskey at all, then I recommend that you search in Facebook Someone Say Whiskey ? And I think they can still find the page, right?
Yep, they sure can.
Still find the group because it's not a secret group yet. And then,
it's not a secret group.
And it will be at one point, but right now it's not. And then you can submit your request, and you can get in contact with Rodney through there
or my Facebook. My name is Rodney Smith. Good luck. It's a million of us out there.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you can't see what Rodney looks like, you can just go to YouTube and search Bourbon Real Talk and then get a gander at Rodney. And he is actually in his profile picture on his Facebook page. Yeah. He's like wearing a suit and he's like leaning up against a door frame or something like that.
I'm black as well. Just want to let you guys know.
He's also black. If you hadn't picked up on that up to this point.
Man, so, hey, my voice comes off very white, so some people can't tell I'm talking proper.
Yeah. No, that's that is the thing. And then for me, if you want more information, you can find me everywhere. So you can search Bourbon Real Talk on Facebook, on Instagram. You can search, you can just go to my website, bourbonrealtalk.com. That's pretty easy. And we actually have on the website, if you have a show suggestion or if you think you might be a good guest, I mean, everyone thinks their story is not that interesting, but the truth is to people that haven't heard it before,
right,
it's actually really interesting. So if you want to be a show guest, you can go on there and that will send me an email. We can start having a discussion. But just keep in mind, people, I mean, this is about drinking some good whiskey.
Thomas H Handy, baby.
Thomas H Handy 2017. And sharing a little bit of whiskey knowledge, but also whiskey brings people together, right? And we want to share that because, you can, the brown water community, they're strong. There's a brotherhood there that makes it fun, and we do fun things together. Right. We get together, we do bottle shares, we do favors for one another. We share whiskey together. We give samples away. We do all kinds of stuff.
We stay out all night waiting for crazy bottles.
Yeah. Sometimes we go camp outside of like liquor stores. We do all kinds of things together, and there's an instant brotherhood. But it really is about more than that, right? It's about actually getting to know your fellow man, pressing the flesh, and making a true friend, and understanding something, and exposing yourself to something that maybe you haven't been exposed to before. So that's the purpose of Bourbon Real Talk. Do you have anything that you want to add?
I actually have a few things I want to say. They're going to be really quick, too. Just to kind of give you guys a general idea how close bourbon brings you guys. I met Randy through bourbon, and he is probably one of my best friends here in Texas since I've been here. I also want to say thank you to everybody in Someone Say Whiskey for making it what it is today. I appreciate every single person out there. Hope you guys listen. Well, I guess if you're going to hear me talk about this, you are listening. So
probably, yeah.
Yeah, you will be listening. But I just want to thank everybody in Someone Say Whiskey. You're going to see a lot of great things coming, and I appreciate every single person there. Thank you so much for all you do.
Awesome. So as always, if you're unsure whether or not anyone loves you, I love you.
And I love you too.
And Rodney loves you.
And thank you, Randy, for joining. Let me to join your show. This was awesome.
Absolutely. And if you ever need anything, reach out to us on social media, and we'll talk to you next time on Bourbon Real Talk.